Can you really get a 2080 Ti for $500 now that the new Nvidia 3000 series has been announced? Is the 3070 really going to destroy the resale value of the 2080 Ti? Well, some people seem to think so, but let's talk about it and let's see why it may not necessarily be the case. Let's get started. Hey everyone, subscribe, like, leave a comment below. Take a look at my other videos. We've been talking a lot about Nvidia stuff as well as some pretty cool water-cooled computer stuff if you're into that as well. So let's get right to it. 2080 Ti, $500. Apparently that's all the talk right now because after Nvidia announced that the 3070, which is going to retail for $499, is going to be faster than a 2080 Ti, people just went all up in arms and they got all crazy, and there's a lot of rumors that you can actually get a 2080 Ti for around $500. So let's say it right off the bat, I don't really think this is true at all. While yeah, you may find a few cases where maybe somebody got a little desperate and they just want to get rid of their 2080 Ti and they don't care. You may find that here or there very sporadically. In general, I do not think that the 2080 Ti is going to tank down in value that much. I'm going to tell you why for a few reasons. The first, most glaringly obvious reason is that while yes, the 3070, 80, and 90 have been announced, they're not really even released yet. I mean, we don't have any reviews, any benchmarks. Maybe a few people got them early, but there's still probably an NDA on it. We don't know exactly how fast these are going to be. And just because Nvidia says the 3070 is faster than the 2080 Ti, of course they're not lying. It's probably faster if you look at it in a certain way or if you look at certain numbers or parameters, but we don't know what that is. Maybe they're just saying it's faster in ray tracing performance, and maybe that's not as important to certain people. Maybe in traditional frames per second, just like the performance you're going to get out of the GPU, maybe the 2080 Ti still is faster in terms of that, and they're really just talking about ray tracing. We don't know. They didn't really say that. When Nvidia announces something, like when they did with the 20 series, you know, they try to make it seem that it's going to be a lot faster than the previous generation, but as we saw with the 20 series, that didn't really happen too much. That's why they're making this generation definitely faster than the 20 series, but I still think we really need to hold off and see what the actual performance is going to be before we can make these bold statements such as the 2080 Ti is going to be, you know, $500, it's going to be slower than the 3070, and I'm sure there are going to be cases where the 3070 is faster than the 2080 Ti because Nvidia said it. Now, we don't know what scenario this is going to be. Like I mentioned before, it could be in a very specific ray tracing or something that this GPU can just better take advantage of whatever hardware has been updated, but I definitely wouldn't go out and start selling your 2080 Ti's for $500. In my opinion, depending on the 2080 Ti model, let's say if you bought it new and it's $1,100 or $1,200, of course it's going to go down in price. I've seen them maybe in the $900 range, $800 range. I think that's a lot more realistic. If you're really shopping for maybe the cheaper ones like the EVGA Black Series or something like that, I could see those eventually possibly going into like a $750 range or low 800 range, but I really don't think $500 is going to be realistic at all. I think when people see the performance of the new 3000 series GPUs, and they do seem pretty awesome, I don't want to take it away from that, I still think that people are still going to value the 2080 Ti just because that's been the flagship card for so long. It's been so expensive, and I still think in a lot of ways they may still perform better than a 3070. Like I said, we really have to see what did Nvidia mean when they say the 3070 is faster than a 2080 Ti. They didn't say any details, so that's going to be the biggest factor here. So having said that, I think there are definitely other areas where the 3000 series will definitely decrease the price of the 20 series GPUs. Before, when we were sort of, theorizing what would happen if the 3000 series GPUs came out really expensive, let's say if the 3070 or even the 3080, were hundreds of dollars more than they are currently as Nvidia announced them, then I could see people holding on to their current 20 series GPUs just because not as many people are going to be able to afford the more expensive stuff. But as we have it, as the prices seem pretty fair for this new generation compared to last generation, people are definitely looking to sell their GPUs, and that's why we have this whole hoopla about 2080 Ti's being $500. I don't think that's going to happen, like I said, but I do think let's take something like the 2080 versus the 3080. Now, the 2080 Super, $699, just like the 3080. Apparently, the 3080 also has twice the performance of a 2080, and once again, we have to take this with a grain of salt, you know, and even though Nvidia said it, they're probably talking about ray tracing or something like that. Who knows what the actual performance in terms of frames per second will be. If it ends up that it really is twice the performance in sort of all metrics, I mean, that's definitely pretty impressive, but it still doesn't completely invalidate the 2080 Super. You can still play games on it. It's still a pretty high-end GPU, but it's definitely going to decrease that price by possibly a considerable amount, depending on just how high performing the 3080 really is going to be. So let's say if it is really high performing from the $699 price, and remember that's for the Founders Edition. Third-party cards are often $700 or $800 depending on which 2080 Super that we're talking about. I could see those numbers start to go down to, you know, $600, maybe even the $500 range. The 2080 Super, that I can see getting closer to $500. I don't think it's going to be that much less, just because traditionally GPUs have held their value, and not everybody's going to run out and buy a 3080. Sometimes for less performance, they may just prefer to save $200 or $300 and get something like the 2080 Super, which, like I said, is still going to be a very good GPU. So I think in that range, you have a bigger chance of the 3080 dropping the price of the 2080 Super, as opposed to the 3070 destroying the price of the 2080 Ti. Definitely, as these new generation GPUs will perform better, prices are going to come down. You're not going to be spending $1,000 for a 2080 Ti, but you're also not going to be spending $500. I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle. Eventually, as these GPUs are released, let's see how the stock is. Apparently, there may not even be a pre-ordering phase, meaning that when these go live on September 17th for the 3080 and September 24th for the 3090, you're going to be able to order them and potentially get them shipped pretty quick. But we don't know how many Nvidia are going to have in stock and available on the first or second wave of shipments. Traditionally, new GPUs have always been sort of back ordered. A few people get them early, and then there's usually a few months where they get delayed, especially now with all these issues that we're having in the world. Very possible that that happens. So if that happens, more people need to keep their 20 series GPUs for a little while longer until those come out. So that's definitely going to affect the price as well. Now, if Nvidia just starts shipping them one after the other and everybody gets their hands on, and the performance really is amazing, and everybody seems to be pretty happy so far with these GPUs, and if that continues, then I do think the secondary used market for the 20 series is going to go down, you know, generally pretty steep depending on the GPU, but we have a lot of ground to cover before we actually get to that point. So I would just kind of keep an eye on things, see how the new 3000 series are getting reviewed, see how frequently they're getting released, and that way we can see the effect that it's going to have on the 20 series GPUs. But I don't expect to get a 2080 Ti for $500. If they were really that low, I think people would just snap them up, just because it's a really awesome flagship GPU with pretty much amazing performance. It's like the best consumer GPU that's out now before the 3000 series hits, not counting the, you know, the RTX Titan or anything like that. So I just don't think it's going to go that low. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this little video. Keep looking out for these GPUs. It's a very exciting time. I can't wait to get my hands on one, see how the performance is. Let's see if Nvidia's claims are true. Let's see what happens with the price. So keep an eye on the channel. Remember to subscribe, check out my other videos, and I'll see you guys in the next video.